Hello, my name is Luke, and welcome back to the Kitchen Couch. We saved you a seat. Today, we're going to be reviewing the second episode of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man that dropped today on the heels of the first episode. And this episode is called The Parker Luck. I was excited to just continue on with this journey because the first episode was so compelling. So before we get started, the first half of this review will be non-spoilery, just in case someone's catching up on this content, or we're doing a little bit of preview action before they want to dive in to a whole season or just this episode. But once the non-spoilery content ends, I'll make a flashing sign. You'll see some text on the screen, and we'll move on to the spoilery stuff. So to begin with, this episode does an excellent job of continuing the direction and the camera work and the animation. I think it actually gets slightly better. You really see what it's like to swing through Queens, and you really get to kind of figure out what it looks like. The characters and relationships grow, but let's just start from the beginning. Kicking off from the end of the first episode, Norman's sitting there. Does he know what'll happen? You have to watch to see. But he's sitting there, and you kind of just jump in. You jump in, and they continue with the story from right there. There's no skips. There's no jumps. You just keep going. Peter's relationships with the rest of the classmates increase. They get better. They get more depth. They get more interesting. This Peter Parker currently is interesting. He's not an outcast or a loner currently. So it's interesting to see how he's going to kind of navigate all this with him being late to everything and with him having so much entitlement. I mean, he's got entitlement. He feels entitled to save people. And balance that with his schoolwork, and balance that with other obligations, and balance that with relationships. So it's pretty interesting to kind of see that evolve as we move forward through this story. The voice acting is unbelievable. This episode is real tight, really thoughtful, just like the first one. It's an excellent companion piece to the first episode. You really kind of get a grasp of who Peter is and what he really cares about. You get a sense of his relationship with sports, his relationship with his friends, his relationship with his goals, his relationship with who he is as a person on the inside. You really begin to do that. And I'll tell you, this is the thing, and I probably should have led with this, but this episode, after being introduced to Peter and Aunt May and where we're at in the story in the first episode, it blows the universe up. It expands it. It becomes bigger. You begin to really kind of understand, okay, here are the stakes. Here's what's happening. Very cool. There's some excellent cameos in this episode also. I can't stress that enough. Some of them are interesting deep cut cameos. I actually looked them up afterward to see, hey, do I really know this person? The Osborn thing is interesting. You really kind of figure out who he is and what's going on with him. I'll tell you this from a non-spoiler review. If it were me, I would watch him back to back. I wouldn't wait. This could have been a full hour-long episode. Had it been an hour long, it would have been too long. Like I said, this is a very tight beginning, middle, and end, just like the first episode, beginning, middle, and end. That storytelling is excellent. It just ties together perfectly from beginning to end. I don't think this is a spoiler. It seems pretty common. The end of the second episode is another cliffhanger. It'll leave you wanting more. So, outside of that, I don't know that I can talk about it much more without spoiling it. You do see Peter in the suit a little less. You do get a cool fight scene though, and you get some of his quips and humor. That's never changed. He still has all that stuff. And I meant to mention this in the first episode. I think this is it's pretty safe content for the younglings out there. I don't know that you need to be 13 I think a 10, 8, 7-year-old would be good to kind of watch this. There's no one's in super danger. There's no blood. There's no whatever. It's fun. It's quippy. You do get to fight a villain in this episode. You're fighting an actual villain. It's not a street level crime. It's a little bit, Spider-Man takes a step up with the antagonist of this episode, which is pretty cool. And he gets to go on a new adventure with different stakes. And until you watch it, I can't talk about it. But I'm going to move on to the spoilery section of this episode. Once again, please watch. If you haven't watched yet, that's fine. But now we're going to do the finger thing, and we're going to go spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. Okay, yeah. So I don't know if Norman Osborn knows. Like, does he? Because Tony in Civil War knew. He knew Spider-Man was, Spider-Man when he walked in. So that's my question. Does he know? Because when you fast forward to the end, and we're going to get to everything in between, but when you fast forward to the end, he pulls up the clip of him in the elevator or whatever in that confined space, and he swings off. So my question is, does Norman know? Maybe this is a whole ploy so he can manipulate Peter into giving him something Peter wouldn't, just offer up. And he's going to come back and say, I know you've been Spider-Man this whole time, but I've had my son, follow you or whatever, get into danger on purpose, or those thugs in episode 1 were paid. That seems plausible. That's a Norman Osborn trick. That might be too complicated for the age range of this content. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe he found out right then and there once Harry left Oscorp and came back. So we'll see him knowing that the Spider-Man is Peter Parker. Interesting. I'm interested to see how that goes. But I guess that's for another review. We're going to go ahead and talk about some other things that I thought were really cool. The villain of the episode, this flame dude, the arsonist. I don't know what they called him in the episode. He was interesting. He's more villainous, obviously, than the first crews that Spider-Man, defeated. And he had some high-end tech that Spider-Man recognized. I think it was Oscorp tech. He one thing that, this is a Spider-Man thing, but one thing I didn't like was that he got kicked across the street or something out of the building into it. Yeah, dude, people don't live through that. If Spider-Man kicks you, that's hard enough, even if he's letting up. But if he kicks you across the street into a window or whatever, boy, it's going to be tough to live through that, to just get up and keep fighting, unless you're just an absolute savage. And they didn't make any. Anyway, that's the one gripe I've got about, and that's just these sorts of things. And it's not really a gripe. It's more like, okay, this is the world we live in, where people can just land on their feet from 15, 20, 30 feet up. I did like the fight scene, though. The fight scene was really, really cool. I liked both part of the fight scene. I even liked that the villain was a good guy. He's like, I don't want to kill anybody. I just want the insurance money. And he's so dumb. He went into the wrong building, which is hilarious. But yeah, Spider-Man saving all the animals, right? Is that a little bit of a foreshadow? We don't know. There's a lot of animals. So that was a cool fight scene. I like that he leveled up his antagonist a little bit, or they did in this episode. Really expands the universe. Let's talk about the second part. Him getting first. He got invited to his first party. He and Nico were invited to Lonnie's for a party, or to somebody's for a party. I don't know that it was Lonnie's, but that was really cool. They seem to accept him at this school, which is a newer-ish thing. Like, the popular kids seem to accept Peter at this school, which doesn't happen in a lot of Spider-Man content. So that's pretty interesting. I'm going to see how long that lasts. How long is it going to last before Spider-Man lets them down because he has to go save someone? But it's just episode 2. He gets invited to this party. Unfortunately, he doesn't get to go. He does go to the football game, in which he doesn't understand at all, because his priorities are on crime fighting and tech and nerd stuff, which I appreciate. That's our Spider-Man. He and Lonnie's relationship expands a little bit. He and Nico's relationship expands a little bit. He and Pearl's relationship expands just a little bit. You don't see a lot of Aunt May in this episode, which is okay. You know, it ain't about her. Then we move on to Oscorp, which is the cool part. It's the cool part. The reason it's the cool part is name drop, name drop, name drop, name drop, and I think another name drop. You also see Harry in this episode too, on TV. But yeah, you have those 5 name drops, and those 5 name drops are pretty cool. Amadeus Cho, infamous for being a brilliant scientist, a brilliant person. Of course, he gets into the robotics, which, if you've read the comics, makes sense. I'm not the biggest Amadeus Cho person, but I know about that. Asha doing aerospace, also being from Wakanda. Very cool. They make a Hawkeye reference while they're at Oscorp as well. And then Jean with the quantum computing. She's a lesser known Spider-Man character, I think. I don't know her super, super, super well. I did like her sass, though. I love a sassy scientist. And then Dr. Connors. She's great. That's Dr. Connors for me. That was awesome. That was awesome. It is interesting, though, that she's in this like applied science for like 0-point energy or battery energy or limitless energy or whatever you want to call it, whatever they'll call it. And they reference Stark, obviously, because the arc reactor. But it's cool. I love that they have a relationship. I love that she was willing to lie for Peter because she sees potential. I'm assuming they're going to have that conversation. And I like how, Peter doesn't kind of get his way, it was the interesting part about it too, I think, was he's a little entitled. It's interesting. I don't know that that's in the script. Is it supposed to be in the script? He's a little entitled. He thinks he needs to save everyone. And then when Osborn told him, hey, come up to my office, and then every other person was like, nah, dude, you're not doing that. He still talked about it. I'm interested to see where that entitlement leads to. I think that's actually like the part of the show that's going to be the most interesting, is that entitlement part. And then obviously, does Norman know who Spider-Man is before they even meet at the apartment in Queens? So once again, it's super interesting. Can't wait for next week. Norman Osborn, one of my favorite all-time comic book characters, just super interesting. He's really cool. I like Norman a lot. Harry, not so much, but Norman I like. But yeah, can't wait for next week. This one, I think this episode was slightly better than the last one, just slightly. Just a pinch, and it may be because I was led into it with such a awesome episode 1. But I think I'm going to end it here. Like and subscribe if you want to. Share with a friend. Welcome to make comments or whatever. We're going to be producing some other content too that's pretty engaging, and you'll be able to maybe join us, or we'll be able to put comments on the screen. So until then, and until next time, see ya.